Hello, welcome back to the Rambling Rector. I'd like to talk to you about this amazing message in the Gospel when Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. Now, you might have a lot of views about what that actually means, but I want to share with you one of those interesting revelations that just suddenly appeared out of nowhere for me and made such a difference to my life. So Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And when he's talking about that, he's got a very clear impression in his mind about what he means. He's actually talking about the temple. He's talking about the main door into the temple. And if you go to Jerusalem, you'll see a model of the temple of Solomon, and it shows you exactly what that looked like. You go through from the outside into the inner court. And this is the place where all of the money changers were, and where so much of the commerce and the business of the town was undertaken. It would have been filled with animals who were being sold and were going to be slaughtered. It would have been full of people. It would have been full of noise. It would have been full of life. It will have been full of life in all of its wonder, and it would have been very, very busy. Now, Jesus is then talking about the truth. And the truth he's thinking about is that next stage, when we go from the outer court into the inner court, the Holy of Holies. And what he's thinking about there is this inside element, the large part of the building at the end of the court. And the first sort of bit of that is where the lampstand is kept and where the priests offer the sacrifices and where a lot of the business of the God bit of the temple is undertaken. And beyond that is the final stage. And that's where the Ark of the Covenant is, which contains, as we know, if anybody's watched any of the movies, they contain the Ark of the Covenant, the actual stones that Moses brought down from Mount Sinai with the Ten Commandments carved in them. And they reside inside that inner sanctum. And the priest can only go there once a year, a special person marked out particularly for that role. So there's that three phases of entering into life in all of its complexity. And then we go into that sort of that deeply spiritual area where the business, as it were, is done, where the incense is lit and where the outer, if you like, court of God resides. And then we go into that third place where God actually is. Now, the language that Jesus is using is really important, and it reflects his understanding of that progression. Because when he says, I am the truth and the life, he is using a very particular word. Now, in Greek, there are three words for life. You might have thought of the obvious one, bios, from which we get biology and biosphere. It literally means life, all life, anything that ticks, anything that has been created, anything that is alive. And that is bios. And we all have that. Look around, you pinch yourself, we're absolutely immersed in the middle of bios. Then there's the second meaning, the second layer of meaning. This is, again, a really important word. This is suka in Greek. And this is a sort of a spiritual life. This is that life of faith. This is this life of yearning for God. This is this life that we enter into and we go on this journey. And you again can see this transition from all of the life of the outside temple into this inner temple where there is this sort of spiritual and where we are immersed in this proximity to God. And then there's the third word, the third meaning of the word life, and that's Zoe. That means eternal life. That means the life of God. That means the life that God has. That life that transcends our humanity, our spirituality, and brings us into communion and community with God. And that's the word Jesus uses. So when he says, I am the way and the truth and the life, He's not saying, with me you will have life in all of its abundance. He says that elsewhere. But he's actually suggesting that if you follow the way and you look at the truth, you will enter into that life of God, that eternal life that exists outside of time and space and is at one with God. So what Jesus is saying is incredibly profound and is far beyond our general understanding. And this is one of the language limitations that we deal with all of the time. But Christ is very clear in what he means, that we will be with God, that we will share the life of God, that our life will be eternal in the same way that God is eternal. And what an exciting story that is, and one that perhaps is left out, is perhaps overlooked by us because we are, when we speak English, only using one word. That's life. The Greeks, as ever, have wonderful, wonderful ways of expressing themselves, and they have these wonderful words meaning life, zoe, with God in all of its abundance. Thank you. If you like what I've got to say, please subscribe to my channel or like, which is equally good, and that's really wonderful. And then when I give updates to all of my videos, which I will over time, then you'll be the first in line to receive them. And I thank you for showing an interest in what I have to say.